Welcome to Fazza Poetry World, where hearts turn into poetry. I still don't fully believe this myself, so listen carefully. Because this is not just a story anymore, this is something that changed the way I see everything. My father, the man who trusts almost no one, asked about you. And then, he said something I never thought I would hear in my life. He asked to meet you. Baby, listen to me. You know my father. Everyone knows him in their own way. Not because he speaks too much, but because he speaks too little. He is the kind of man whose silence has weight. A silence that does not feel empty, it feels observing. Like he is not just in the room, he is reading it. He watches more than he speaks. And when he looks at people, it feels like he already knows their story, before they even try to explain it. He keeps his world locked. Carefully. Deliberately. Like trust is not given, it is tested by time. Very few people are allowed inside that world. And even fewer are invited twice. Yesterday, I walked into his office. The air inside was different. Heavy. Not loud, not tense, just heavy with silence. The kind of silence that forces you to become honest. The kind of silence where lies feel uncomfortable to breathe. I thought I knew what was coming. A warning. A reminder. Another lecture about distance, about boundaries, about not mixing heart with responsibility. I was ready. I had prepared my words like shields. I was ready to defend you. I was ready to say, she is different. She is not what you think. She deserves a chance. But he did not do what I expected. He did not interrupt. He did not judge. He did not speak fast. He just looked at me, calmly, and then asked one question. What does she do? That was it. One sentence. But somehow, it felt heavier than 1,000 lectures. Because in his world, questions are never casual. They are never small. They are never just curiosity. They are tests. I was not ready, not because I didn't know the answer, but because I knew the answer was too real to decorate. So I told him the truth. Not the polished version. Not the impressive version. Just the real one. I told him, she works hard even when no one is watching. She does not wait for applause. She does not wait for permission. She does not break when things get hard, she adapts. Quietly. Steadily. Without noise. I told him, she does not wear masks. She does not change herself to fit rooms. She does not steal what is not hers. She does not pretend to be someone else just to belong. She stands firm in who she is, even when standing alone would be easier. He listened. Completely silent. No expression wasted. No reaction given away. Just listening, like every word was being placed somewhere deeper than conversation. Then he leaned back, and said something I will never forget. Bring her. I want to speak with her myself. I think I have something she could help with. And in that moment, everything stopped inside me. Because I understood what that meant. In my father's world, this does not happen easily. People are not invited. Doors are not opened casually. Trust is not spoken, it is built silently over time. But this was not casual. This was not politeness. This was not family connection. This was recognition. And more than that, it was respect. He sees you. Not because of me. Not because of association. But because of who you are when no one is shaping you. I sat there, silent, because I knew this was not ordinary. This was rare. And rare things in his world are never accidental. After those words, "Bring her. I want to speak with her myself," I didn't move. Not because I didn't understand, but because I understood too much. There are moments in life when reality doesn't feel like reality anymore. It feels like a door quietly opening into a place you were never prepared to enter. And this was one of those moments. My father does not invite people like that. He does not request presence. He observes it, then decides if it is worth bringing closer. And somehow, you were now inside that circle. Not because you forced your way in, but because you never tried to enter at all. That's what he noticed. The ones who don't chase space, but still deserve it. I walked out of that office, but the silence followed me. Not the empty kind of silence, the kind that repeats his words in your head, again and again, like they are trying to reveal something deeper. Bring her. Those two words kept echoing. Like they were not just spoken. They were decided. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the same thing. His face. Calm. Controlled. Me sitting across him. And you, somewhere in between that moment, standing without even being physically present, but still changing everything. Baby, you need to understand something. My father doesn't react easily. He registers. And once he registers someone, it is not temporary. It becomes a file in his mind that he keeps revisiting silently. The next day, he didn't bring it up again. That's his way. He never repeats decisions. He lets them breathe. But I could feel it. The shift. Small. Invisible to anyone else. But loud in the way he looked at things. At work. At people. At me. And then, the moment came. The meeting was set. Not officially dramatic, not announced with importance, just simple words, bring her when you can. That was it. But in his world, that sentence carries more weight than any introduction. Because it means, he already decided you belong in the conversation. Not outside it. Inside it. I thought about you all morning. Not what you would say, but how you would be. Because that's what he notices most. Words don't impress him. Noise doesn't reach him. Performance doesn't stay in his memory. But presence does. The kind that doesn't shake under pressure. The kind that doesn't change shape just because the room is powerful. And I know you. You don't perform life. You live it. That's what scared me, and comforted me at the same time, because I didn't know what would happen when your silence meets his silence. Two worlds. Both strong. Both unreadable. Both used to not being explained. When we reached the place, it was quiet again. Of course it was. It always is. He was already there. Waiting. Not impatient. Not excited. Just aware. Like he already knew the conversation before it began, and was only waiting for confirmation. You walked in. And I noticed something immediately. You didn't change your pace. You didn't adjust yourself. You didn't shrink. You didn't expand. You just entered. Like you belonged to your own space, even inside someone else's. And for the first time, I saw something in my father's expression. Not surprise. Not approval. Something rarer. Recognition. He stood up slightly. Not fully. Just enough to show respect without making it obvious. And then, he did something he never does quickly. He looked at you directly. Not through you. Not past you. At you. The room didn't feel like a room anymore. It felt like a pause between two thoughts. Then he spoke. Slow. Measured. You're the one I've heard about. No praise. No warmth. Just acknowledgement. And you didn't rush. You didn't try to fill the silence. You didn't try to impress it. You just said, nothing unnecessary. And in that moment, I understood something very clearly. This was not a meeting of introductions. This was a meeting of observation. Two people who don't speak to fill air, but to understand weight. My father leaned back slightly, hands together, eyes steady. And I could feel it. He was not evaluating you anymore. He was measuring alignment. Not personality. Not charm. Something deeper. Consistency. Stability. Truth under pressure. And then, he said something I didn't expect again. You don't try to be noticed. A statement. Not a question. And you replied, calmly. I don't need to. Silence again. But this time, it was different. It wasn't tension. It was acknowledgement meeting acknowledgement. Like two truths recognizing each other without competition. I looked at him, and for a second, I saw it. That slight shift. The one that doesn't show on face, but changes decisions. He had already made his conclusion. Not fully spoken. But formed. And I realized, this was not about me anymore. Not about family. Not about expectation. This was about something rare in his world. Trust that forms without asking for it. The room did not change, but something inside it did. It is strange how silence can shift without sound. No door closing. No voice rising. No gesture changing. And still, everything feels different. My father was still sitting there. Same posture. Same calm eyes. Same controlled expression. But I could feel it, he was no longer testing you. He was studying the result of his test. And that is something very few people ever get to experience. Because in his world, people are usually filtered out long before they even realize they were being observed. But you were still there. Not because you fought to stay, but because you didn't break anything that needed breaking. There was a pause. A long one. Not awkward. Not uncomfortable. Just, heavy with meaning. Then he spoke again. This time softer. Not emotionally soft, but strategically softer. Like a decision shifting from analysis into direction. You handle pressure well. Simple sentence. But in his language, that is not a compliment. That is a conclusion. You nodded slightly. No exaggeration. No relief shown. Just acknowledgement. Like you understood the weight behind it better than the words themselves. And I noticed something else. You were not trying to read him, you were letting him reveal himself. That alone is rare. Most people enter his presence trying to decode him, trying to predict him, trying to match him. But you were just present. Fully. Unfiltered. And that made him do something unexpected. He asked another question. What do you want to build in your life? Not what you do. Not what you studied. Not what you can prove. But what you want to build. Because people who think like him don't measure identity. They measure direction. You didn't rush this time either. You looked down for a second. Not hesitation, reflection. Then you answered. I want something that lasts longer than attention. That line changed the air. Even I felt it. Because attention is temporary. Noise is temporary. Validation is temporary. But what you said was permanence. And my father heard it exactly that way. I saw it in his eyes. That subtle stillness that appears only when something aligns with his internal structure of understanding. He leaned slightly forward. Just a fraction. And said, that is not a common answer. You replied, common things don't last. Silence again. But this time, it was not observation anymore. It was agreement forming quietly. Not spoken. But built. I could feel it happening in real time. Like two minds, slowly removing distance between them. Not emotionally. Structurally. Then he did something I had never seen before in any meeting I had ever attended with him. He asked you about failure. Not success. Not achievement. Failure. What have you failed at that shaped you? That question is not casual. It is not polite curiosity. It is a mirror. Because how someone answers that determines everything in his world. You didn't freeze. You didn't avoid. You didn't redirect. You answered honestly. Not dramatically. Not emotionally exaggerated. Just real. And the more you spoke, the quieter the room became. Because real stories don't need performance. They carry their own weight. When you finished, he didn't respond immediately. He looked away slightly. A rare gesture. Not distraction. Processing. And then he said something that stayed longer than anything else in that room. You don't run from difficulty. A pause. Then, you adjust to it. And then, the shift happened. Not loud. Not announced. But real. He stopped questioning you like a stranger. And started speaking like someone acknowledging presence. That is useful, he said. Not to impress you. Not to approve you. But to recognize value in structure. I realized something in that moment. This was no longer an interview. It was integration of thought. My father doesn't invite people emotionally. He invites them intellectually first. Emotion comes later, if ever. Then he did something even more unexpected. He said, if you were to work on something that requires patience, would you commit to it fully? Not would you like it? Not are you interested? But commitment under patience. And you answered, yes. If it matters. That was enough, that one sentence. Because in his world, people either chase excitement, or they build endurance. You chose endurance. And I saw it. For the first time, he stopped leaning into evaluation. And leaned into acceptance of possibility. There was a shift in tone after that. Subtle. But undeniable. He spoke less like someone assessing, and more like someone considering structure. This kind of mindset is rare, he said. Not praise. Classification. Then he looked at me briefly. And I understood without words. He was no longer asking why her. He was already past that stage. Now he was thinking, what can be built with her presence involved? That is how he operates. Not with emotion first, but with architecture. The meeting didn't end dramatically. There was no conclusion speech. No announcement. No final approval. Just a natural fading of intensity. Like something had reached its internal agreement, and no longer needed to argue its existence. When you stood up, you didn't rush. You didn't overthink. You didn't ask for validation. You simply acknowledged the moment. And that itself, left more impact than anything said before. As you walked out, I stayed back for a moment. My father didn't speak immediately. Then he said quietly, "She is not reactive." A pause. Then, "That is valuable." And I realized, that was his version of respect. Not loud. Not emotional. But structural acknowledgement. The kind that does not fade quickly. And I understood something deeply that day. You were not being chosen. You were being recognized. And in his world, recognition is rarer than approval.